All right. PPI. Good morning, guys. Yeah, GEV. Nice little gap up. I know BE had a nice gap up. Yeah, market just had PPI. So that's good. Kind of get that out of the way. And the markets are ripping on the back of that. How long can it keep going? I mean, Google can keep going. Here's the thing is that, like, even if you owned it, it could just go sideways and let the 10-day catch up and be completely fine. So, my opinion on how high something can keep going is totally irrelevant to anybody's process, right? You can't really buy it here. It's a little extended, but if you already own it, then you're fine. Yeah, Oracle massive gap up, man. They have a huge backlog. I mean, 320s, holy cow. What an insane move. Yeah, a lot of names are gapping up right now. It wasn't even just those. It was like something like Wolf caught a bid last night. What else caught a bid last night? It was Wolf. I saw Hut perk up a little bit. So won't be too surprised if this thing's, mid 30s here pretty soon as well. Too many eyes on Tesla, in your opinion? Maybe. Yeah, Iron's another one. All I know is I own Tesla. I'm looking forward to that thing going higher soon. Yeah, data center plays. I don't know that this thing's got to get going this week, but it doesn't look bad. Yeah, I saw the quantum stocks yesterday. I mean, they're not dying, I'll tell you that. AMD reclaimed the 50-day. Sure did. Nah. AR and RRC are below the 200-day. I mean, I'm sure they can get back up above, but I don't like guessing that something's going to go into an uptrend. I mean, maybe, right? Maybe it's at the lower trend line and then, it'll come back up above the 200, but that's all kind of guesswork, right? I don't really like to do guesswork. it's either already in an established uptrend in a good group with good earnings and sales, or it's not. And then I just don't trade it. Right? Like there's so many names in the market that if you start guessing at which are going to be in an uptrend, you end up wasting a lot of time. And in trading, time is what leads to compounding, and you don't have any to waste. Right? You'd rather just focus on stocks that are in uptrends. It leads to like much better performance over time versus assuming you have to like get this perfect average, like way down here when you couldn't buy it like at 40 and think you wouldn't make a ton of money. You still could, right? It's all about not having to micromanage something. Yeah, there are better brokerages for shorting, but after a day like yesterday and you saw how nuts some stocks went, sometimes that's the thing you want to avoid in this market. I think the NASDAQ's built enough of a base, yeah. This is a 6-week base. And it's allowed the 50-day to catch up. And everybody, has been getting chopped up in here. I actually bought some yesterday, some MP. So we'll see if it'll decide to bounce off this 50. I personally couldn't buy Oracle. 30% gap ups on a name this big is just I can't do it. Could it just keep going like last quarter where you gap up and then you just keep running? It could. Yeah, Palantir, I like the way it bounced off the 50. I had this thing on watch going into today, but too much of a gap up here this morning as well. Yeah, PSIX looks good. It looks good. It's nice and tight. AMSC also looks really good. This looks like just a clean little bull flag here. You got caught in a Neo offering? That's just unlucky. Yeah, PSTG is not bad. Just needs to take out the high volume close. Yeah, maybe Intel's ready. Maybe Intel is ready. It's really nice daily, but the weekly kind of, just a long stage one base. NBIS offering. Hardly budging. $2 billion of convertible senior notes. Actually, there have been moments. I mean, it hasn't been perfect, right? But there have been moments when the market was also pulling back where Tesla was showing some relative strength. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that the fundamentals are non-existent. Remember, stocks tend to be forward-looking, and Tesla now has that robo-taxi kind of at least moving around. And so that's step one. And then, step two will be eventually the market starts to price in humanoid robots. So a lot of it has to do with story. And yeah, just from a technical perspective, I think, it's got the nicest base from a large cap, mega caps perspective. So, and by the way, For the people who have been driving the new Tesla, I've heard nothing but good things about that, about the full self-driving. So I like to think it's a cult stock too, but I've heard great things about that full self-driving. Yeah, I was looking at AOI first thing this morning. FSD is insane. Yeah, you see? That's what I'm saying. That's the sort of thing I keep hearing. Rocket Lab doesn't look too bad. You know, I kind of like KTOS a little bit more. Doesn't really have a big distribution day like Rocket Lab, and MRCY is another one that looks pretty good too. ASST a scam? I'm not sure. Trading like it. My thoughts on Core Scientific. CoreWeave was going to buy them and then decided last moment that they're not gonna. I don't know. Not such a terrible base. Course looks pretty good. Yeah, CoreWeave was supposed to buy him and then they backed out, and I don't know. I think the names adjacent to cores in like its group are acting pretty well, right? Wolf, Hut, Iron, Cipher. Looks pretty decent. MBIS got a little bit more whacked. Let's see. Yeah. Well, $2 billion offering, you know. AMPX. Yeah, looks good. We've been talking about this one for the last few days. I think on Monday somebody asked me about this thing. Spotify. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look bad. You know, it'll move with Netflix basically. SoFi is another one I don't think looks bad. Yep, offerings can be buy opportunities in strong names. That's for sure. Pony, I saw this one moving yesterday. I don't know if this was moving because it was just a Chinese stock or because Chinese equities were acting pretty great, right? Something like KWeb, you know, pushing out to highs. Baba gapped up again. Unfortunately, it gave some of that gap up back. Good Lord. This thing likes to gap a ton. One gap, two gaps, three gaps. Very uncomfortable to hold Baba, but you just have to hold it with conviction. PDD. Yeah, Carvana, another one that doesn't look bad at all. It's like that 380 spot. 379. Thoughts on TME? Another nice, strong Chinese stock. Yeah, it looks good. It's got a bit of a gap up going on again overnight here, but it looks good. Not some big gap up. C and CG, so Citigroup. I wouldn't use the word it's too slow for me. If I've got some cash left over, this is the kind of setup I could still go for. And CG, I haven't looked at. What is this? The Cargill Group? Yeah, not bad. Estee Lauder setting up. Yeah, and I saw this one. I actually think Elf looks a little bit better. It's been a little bit stronger, but they should move together. If I'm gonna play one of these modular, I don't love the reaction that SMR had the other day, but it could still bounce along this 100-day. Oklo was another one. I tried to buy CCJ yesterday, which I'm still in, but I was also staring right at LEU, and I went with CCJ like a total clown. I just picked the wrong one. Should have bought this thing like 207, 208, and I kind of effed that up. Yeah, RBRK, if we have a nice reaction to earnings, could be good. No, I don't really like the treasury plays. I don't like BMNR. Right? I don't like this name. Could it go higher? Yeah, it could. But I would prefer to play like ETHU. Right? Like BMNR moves 10% per day, ETHU moves 8% per day, and I don't have the risk of them diluting on me. So less volatility. Thoughts on Lemonade? They're a terrible insurance company, but they are above the 50 and the 200. Yeah, I mean, they're all right. I don't know that I love it, but yeah, we've been talking about Iron Hut, Cypher. I mean, we've been talking about these names for a while. Iron Hut, Cypher, Wolf. Nice to see them working. Tesla just took out yesterday's highs. Yeah, TSM had a nice little flat base. Not bad. Not bad. And gapping up now overnight, too. Snowflake. God, I slept so good last night that I'm still yawning. How about that? Yeah, Tesla over yesterday's high is fantastic. So I added to my position yesterday. Very nice to see it working. Snowflake. Yeah, Snowflake could be pretty good. It's building a series of higher lows on the 10-day. Had a nice earnings reaction. Yeah, not bad. From February to April, I was short names. I was short names like NOW from this earnings gap down. Right? You got this earnings gap down and then you bear flagged. I was short in here. I was short even AVGO, just didn't last as long from this little bear flag breakdown. I was short MU from its earnings gap down as well. Right here. I was short GRRR when it broke the 50 right here. What else was I short? I don't know. I was short all sorts of stuff, man. I was short all sorts of stuff. And now AVGO, MU. I'm sure I could look at my prior trades, but yeah, I was short. At one point, I was just short 7 names. I think Oscar's just moving for its own right. I don't know that it's a sympathy. Like, obviously, when UNH performs better, it's going to be helpful to a name like Oscar, but I don't know that it's moving as a sympathy. I think it's just moving for its own right. Right? Because even in here, I don't think Oscar was moving as a sympathy to UNH. Yeah, I saw BE gapping up last night. Very nice. All on Oracle's move. Bless you. Bless you. You just need a brokerage where you can get charts like this and then annotate them. Right? You'll just annotate them with like a little text box, and you'll just write like, whatever this was. Whatever the news was for BE, look it up right on the date. You'll write it in a little text box, and then you'll put it right there. And then you'll how do I say this? Like, your job is to go through every single year and figure out what the biggest movers was, what the catalyst was that moved them, and then study what does a stage 1 base look like, what does a stage 2 uptrend look like, what's a stage 3 top look like, what's a stage 4 decline look like. Burn those into your head so that it just becomes kind of like second nature. That's why you always hear me say stuff like, it's below the 200, leave it alone, right? So that's kind of like, you just burn so many charts into your head by looking at them over and over and over and over, that a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, Stan Weinstein style, becomes second nature. And then, go back and look at what was the environment they worked in, what catalyst did they have. Oftentimes it's earnings related. Some of the biggest moves in the market are earnings related. What was the market acting like when your stock started to falter? What were other stocks in its group acting like when your stock started to falter? All those little things, put the pieces together, and it helps. And it helps. I don't mind it. I don't mind it, but at some point, these things are going to have to break out over 48 70s. Eventually, Rigetti's going to have to get going over its own, sideways consolidation. These all have these, several month consolidations. It's going to have to get going, right? Eventually. And they're all kind of stuck in a range like that, which is fine. The longer the range, the higher it can go, but they got to get going at some point. They don't look bad, I'll tell you that. What do you think I'm buying VIX on a market panic? I don't see the reason. I could just short a stock. It's just as easy. I think Hut and Cypher are fine. I don't see a setup to buy them right here. I tried buying Hut on this day and it shook me out. And then the next day it took off. This thing has given a few decent entries. Pullbacks against descending moving averages are the best spot to get involved. Yeah, I wouldn't go chasing a gap up on this, number one. The time to have bought this was yesterday or the day prior. A stock determines if I'm going to position trade it. I don't just position trade it because of whatever random reason, right? Like, I've been in ARK now for 3+ months and I added more yesterday. Would you consider then this a position trade? I mean, I've owned this thing since 6/6. Is that now a position trade where you've been in it for over 3 months? I've been in CCL now for 3 months, basically. Does that make it a position trade? Like, I don't just look at a chart and say, oh yeah, I'm going to position trade this thing. I swing trade them all, right? And I trim some into strength because I have to pay myself and treat it like a business. But then once that's done, right, I just sit there and let the moving averages do what they're going to do, right? I don't determine how high it's going to go, how high it can, how long it'll trend. Like, nobody knows. But if it's going to trend cleanly, then I become a position trader, right? Because I just let my stocks work. No, I'm not finding. So, like, offerings in a year like this are going to be more common than in 2022, in my opinion. Right? It's I just think that when stock price goes up so high, and there's like strong momentum behind a name, a company's just taking advantage of the environment to shore up their balance sheet. Like, a really smart company doesn't care about the stock price, right? A really smart company cares about being able to do their operations, and so if they need cash, they need cash, right? So yeah, you're going to notice, offerings be more common on stocks that are, in uptrends, especially strong ones, like MBIS did it. And even SoFi did one recently, on this day after earnings. So, and it got bought right back up. GEV looks fine. Carvana looks cool. Miguel, I just talked about IONQ. I think it looks just fine too. SGHC. There's something a little bit random about this. 30 million bucks a day. They're not too slow. It moves almost 5% a day. This one a little bit too slow. This one's also too slow. Yeah, AOI doesn't look bad. It's just been chopping right around the 200. We'll see what happens. I would like to see it make a higher high of some sort. How do you grow a small account with swing trading? The way you grow it is you sit patiently in the best names in the market, and you try to time them well. You trim a little bit into strength, and then you trail the rest, and hopefully you catch a huge move. And you avoid stocks that trade sub 3 ADR, right? You want to trade names that are a little bit faster. As it relates to position sizing, depends how quickly the stock moves. 10 to 15 to 20% positions. That's it. I mean, if you can safely add yourself into the stock a handful more times, you can get a little bit bigger, right? 30 and 40%, but I don't really recommend that too often. Yeah, I could talk about Tesla once again. So I bought it a few days ago on Friday, and it didn't go anywhere. And I was widening out my stop on this day to the 200 simple moving average. So, like, I would rather just be really small size at first and just be in the stock than, mess around with it too much and be in and out and in and out, right? So that was kind of my first bit of thinking with it. And then yesterday I started to add some more as I noticed that it was the market was bouncing, and two, Tesla was starting to bounce with the market. So that was kind of my second bit of thinking, just add some more. But my ads yesterday came with a low of day stop, meaning I'm not going to add to my position and still keep a wider stop. So I would be comfortable keeping a wider stop on my initial shares, but not on yesterday's shares. And then this morning, obviously, a bit of a gap up right into yesterday's high. So, even yesterday's shares are in the green. But as the market started to bounce, I was buying Tesla basically right in this 348 area, and that's it. As the market was kind of V-shaped recovering, and it really didn't come and close towards the low of day, so I just held them overnight, and you're kind of being rewarded for it right now. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking. I want to make Tesla a much bigger position, so I kind of have to add a handful of times before I get there. It depends on the volume. If there's like a big pickup in volume and it's a high relative volume, then I'll just buy it as it's going through a pivot. Yeah, STRL looks awesome. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this name. Yeah, I do. I love ALAB. I kind of missed the spot a few days ago, and so there's no chasing this for me. But it did look really good, like 197.5. I keep being asked about this one. I don't really care for this one. The 200 days got to go into an uptrend. Nice job, tripling, quadrupling off the bottom, but yeah, bit of a gap up in ANET. God, big gap up. Yeah, I think ANET's fine. I don't really see a spot to buy it this morning, but which moving average am I trailing? ARC, the 50 simple moving average, and it's gapping up over this morning, so I'm feeling pretty good about it so far. When it's breaking through a prior day high. So one of the things that I'm often thinking about when the stock is breaking through a prior day high is, how is the group acting? How is the market acting? Like, if the market's coming down, right, I'm not putting myself in a good position to buy a stock going through prior day high, because very likely it could just end up failing right there. So that's a situation that I want to avoid. Like, I want to buy stocks as they're going through a pivot and the market's acting well. CDNS, is that Cadence? CDNS looks pretty good. I don't really see a setup here for COM. SoFi, I think, looks good. Yeah, I bought MP yesterday. We'll see if that one can hold up. EME, MCore, they just got into the S&P 500. This one also looks pretty good. Yeah, TEM also looks all right, but something about the setup, man. They're making it kind of sloppy to get involved into this thing. Right, looks like it's trying to break out of a big base. Yeah, kind of. Big stage 1 base. No. I don't really care too much for TARK. Same thing. But no, the reason is it's a little bit of a pain in the butt with sizing, with really low liquidity. I know it's an ETF, but some of these 5-minute bars are trading like a couple hundred shares or 500 shares. I'm all right. And then when somebody comes in and buys 10,000 shares, this thing moves like a buck. So no, there's a liquidity issue going on in here. So I would rather deal with no liquidity. I don't want to have to move anything I'm buying. think Palantir looks fine. I think Palantir did a nice job bouncing off its 50 and probably goes back into a uptrend is what it looks like to me. If I buy a pullback at the 20 and 50 SMA, where do you add to that kind of initial position? I'm looking at a daily chart, and then I'm using a 620 setup on a 5-minute. Okay, I've now seen people mention Zeta a handful of times. I got to pull it up. Yeah, it just looks like a consolidation above the 200. Could it get going at some point? That'd be nice. How about over this high volume close, exactly where my line's been sitting for weeks? How do I decide to close the position under the 50, 20, or 10? One, dependent on how quickly the stock moves. There are times where you might be trading like a really quick, mid-cap name, and I don't want to give it all the way back down to the 50. But something that just trends well and then goes sideways for a while, like ARC, for instance, then you end up using the 50. Something that just trends well and then ends up going sideways, like CCL, then you just end up using the 50. Right? So this thing pushed away really nicely from my average and then just went sideways. And even in here, it was doing nothing wrong. It was just like basically above the 10-day. Then the 20 started to catch up, and then it just kept building off of this low right here. And, even on this day where it tried to shake me out, it closed well. I had already taken some profits, so this day didn't really bug me. And then it's done nothing wrong below this day's low. So, I've just allowed the 50 to catch up, and, it's kind of put me in a situation now that I'm just using the 50. And even the 50 has gotten well up above that spot, about $2. So, at first I'm using the 20, and then if it just starts to go sideways and build higher lows against the 10, and then it pops up, and then against the 20, and then because remember, the 20 keeps upsloping, and so does the 50. So as soon as price kind of passes up these levels of higher low, like now I'm just using the 50. And importantly with CCL, it's had a few names in the group that have been acting well this whole time, something like RCL and something like VIK. It looks like average volume is very low. Okay, so I think you need to consider dollar volume. I think you'll look at like the volume on the day and you'll be like, oh, it's only trading 300,000 shares. But you're not taking into account the fact that it's a $200, almost a $300 stock. So it trades over $100 million a day, which is enough liquidity for me if I wanted to trade it. So please keep that in mind. I hear people confuse the two. Don't confuse shares traded with dollar volume, right? You could have a stock that's 10 cents and trades 40 million shares a day, and you'd be like, oh, that 10-cent stock's trading more volume than STRL. Yes, but I still can't buy the 10-cent stock, but I could buy the $300 stock. Does that make sense? Because it's trading more dollar volume. That's the important part, right? Like how many shares of STRL could I really buy at $288 or $287, right? It's like, how many could you actually buy? Not that many, right? Not versus like that 10-cent stock where I would need like 1 million shares. Does that make sense? You're at 15% in A-Lab, but I have half position. When should I look to put in a full position? Oh, man. I don't know that I would chase it. I mean, you really want to chase a stock? I know I wouldn't. All three. For sector strength, all of them. I don't care about 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month. Sector performance. Would I limit the number of trades I take per day? Yeah. Like yesterday, I took more trades than I have in a while. I don't know that I would limit them if they're working. or if you like have a logical plan with them and like they're all within, your rule set and you've got proper stop losses on all of them. I mean, I wouldn't go from like 0% invested to 100% invested in the market, but like yesterday I added to ARK, yesterday I added to PDD, yesterday I added to Tesla, and yesterday I bought CCJ and MP. So no, I'm not holding any Oklo. I sold Oklo on, when was this? On this day here. Was that right? No, on this day here, 8/19. I bought this on 7/14, and I trimmed some into the strength in here, and then I stopped out the rest on this day here. Too late to get into NBIS? Well, they've got an offering going on right now, so maybe it ends up creating an opportunity to buy some. The 50 simple moving average, but yeah, effectively yesterday's lows, right? This 50 will catch up a little bit more, and it's going to catch up to like that $61, $62 level, hopefully. So we'll see. KTOS, I think, looks pretty good. What percentage of my portfolio do I allocate when you move into a position trade after you switch from swing trade position? No, sometimes it's more, and because of appreciation, a stock becomes more than 10%. So like if you bought a 10% position, it becomes more than that with appreciation. AMPX looks fine. Same thing. 10% position sizes, 10, 15, 20. Again, position size all depends on your stop and all depends on how quickly a stock moves, right? On a really fast moving name, you can't really go more than 10%. And, on a name like JP Morgan breaking out, you can go 20%. I don't care to even talk about GME. They're a total turd. Yeah, this looks terrible for now. What are we supposed to do with this no momentum stock? Yeah, just, simply ARK, right? You don't always need massive volume going through the pivot, but I'll give an example here. Right? When ARK was going through the pivot, if you were looking at this volume coming in even on a 5-minute bar, you would have noticed massive volume coming through here on a 5-minute chart compared to the prior day. Just absolutely gigantic volume coming through this flat pivot. My thoughts on SRAD? I think it looked better right here or on the earnings gap up for a high volume close. You had 1 entry, 2 entries, 3 entries up here. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Yeah, I think KTOS looks pretty good. KTOS looks pretty decent, and MRCY is another one that looks pretty good. No, I don't own Hood. Zillow, not bad. A little choppy. Like this price action here would drive me insane. Like a broadening channel would drive me kind of crazy. Don't know that I'd like to trade something like that. I prefer, guys, I talk about it all the time. I prefer flat bases or like little small pullbacks. So you get a move up and then you get this kind of price action, right? And then you consolidate within that level and then you break out. Or I like a move up and then I like a flat base. right? And this one here will resemble something like ARC, right? You get the move up and then you get a flat base. What columns do I use for my watch list? The only thing I care about is dollar volume, average percent true range, and percent change. That's it. Yeah, TLN looks good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with TLN. You can get your orders executed by any broker in after hours. If you don't, you need to change brokers. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this name. PSKY. Seems a little random. It's over 20 days. Price over 20 days. Yeah, VRT not so bad. We'll see if it can reclaim the 50-day. AEHR has been looking pretty good. Run kind of had a nasty down day yesterday. Yeah, market orders do not work in after hours. You need limit orders. And then you need your execution to be in extended hours. So like if you use toss, they need to be like good till close extended hours. You should be able to use limit orders. You're not going to do market orders. They have to be limit orders. If IBKR in Europe can't extend you in pre and after hours, you need to call customer service and figure out what the hell's going on. Hey, you're in Sweden. Love that. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, TTMI strong. We talked about this one a few days ago. It looks a little like CLS. Looked a little like CLS. Guys, I got to get rolling. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you guys have an awesome trading day today. Don't do anything crazy as usual. Make sure your watch list is set in stone. And yeah, you guys trade them well. I will see you guys in 23 hours. Yep, you guys have a great one. Cheers.